One of the biggest topics that we talk about that I feel like is still almost unknown within the B2B space and all these new automation tools, but where like if we're looking at with in terms of client acquisition, you guys for obviously aren't selling a quick e-com type of item, an umbrella or a pair of shoes or something, right? So you can't take a client from start to finish using AI tools and automation. There has to be some sort of human interaction in there. But where does that pendulum fall? Like if 100%, if 50-50 is 50% automations and AI and then 50% human interaction, like finding that happy medium of, can you acquire a client with 70% automations and 30% human interaction?
And then in our industry, especially, you can have these relationships go on, years and years, and you're building up sometimes these relationships with your buyer or procurement team for your end customer, and these develop over time.
But then again, when you actually pick up and call somebody, it's crazy how much people appreciate an actual conversation and a human being on the phone at the same time.
Yeah, well, lessons in using them, overspending there, I would say, kind of as we were talking about. You get into integrating 1, 2, 3, 4 softwares, you fall into the problem where you're not really using one or two. You may not be using a couple to the full extent of what you had realized, and also just falling into really not following up with the softwares that we already had, that we were already using, and everybody's evolving. Everybody is in this world.
Yeah, you're like, wait a minute, I'm paying for 3 other softwares, but the software I already had now does all this. And did you really like map out a plan and figure out like, hey, here's everywhere that I think we can implement AI or a software or workflow or something along those lines. But here's what we really need. Like, and what I tell people is what's going to move the needle and then what's going to be convenient, right? Because at the end of the day, everybody has to answer to somebody, and that somebody's going to want to know what's my ROI, right? Obviously. And I think that's where a lot of people use focus is they just start stacking stuff and chasing that next shiny object when it's like, look, what's going to move the needle and bring dollars in the door, and what's just going to send dollars flying out the door. But in our world, that B2B world, when you're talking about that pendulum going back and forth, there has to be a human interaction. There has to be somebody to establish that relationship, solidify that trust and credibility. Because at the end of the day, people buy from who they know, like, and trust.
You do have to be constantly aware and constantly building that personal relationship in the ever building struggle of the automation.